Hello, everybody. A warm welcome to Wisdom from North. My name is Jannicke, and today I have the Norwegian author Anne Gjeitanger on the show again. The last time we spoke about her channeled book, Mary Magdalene. Today we're going to speak about Damanhur, a federation of spiritual communities located in the north of Italy. Every year, thousands of people visit this place in order to study the philosophy or to meditate in the Temples of Humankind, an underground construction excavated by hand by the citizens, and many are calling it the eighth wonder of the world. Anne, welcome back to Wisdom from North.
Thank you so much.
And I wanted to do the second interview because we did an interview about your book, Mary Magdalene, the legend, because you have been channeling her. But you live in Damanhur, and I'm very curious about that place because it has become very famous now. I think it's 600 people who live there, and it's a very spiritual village. And so I'm thinking we can start with the history of Damanhur. If you can talk a little bit about why it was founded and how.
Well, Damanhur was founded in 1975, basically, even if they didn't move to the place where we are now situated, before more or less 4 years later. In 1975, there was the founder. His name was then Oberto Airaudi. His name has since become Falco Tarassaco, which is consisting of an animal name and a plant name, as many Damanhurians have. So he's basically known to be Falco. He was a man with particular powers and faculties, and a vision and a dream. And he gave a series of lectures in Turin, which is also a particular place where much magic has taken place throughout the centuries. So he was born close to Turin, and this is where he started speaking to people and showing them what could be possible that they didn't know about, like using energies in a different way from what we usually think is normal. And he inspired people to follow his series of lectures. And then with the group, he started to meet more closely, also making a magazine, doing other kinds of work. And then finally, they wanted to go to experiment the theory by living together in practice. He started, so the first part of, or one of the pillars of Damanhur is the meditation school. And this was started already in the mid-70s. The second pillar of Damanhurian life is the social life, the fact that we live together in communities. So Damanhur now consists of more or less 25 communities in a federation of communities, and they're spread out over this area in Valkeusella, which is a little valley 50 kilometers more or less north of Turin, where they decided to move and to start this social experiment. And the reason why they chose that place is due to the synchronic lines, which is different from ley lines or other electromagnetic lines. They are the lines crisscrossing crisscrossing also the universe wherever there is life in the universe. And then this planet Earth in 18 directions, 9 horizontally and 9 vertically. They meet in some places, giving a great energy charge to that place. Tibet is one of the places where many synchronic lines meet, and then Valkeusella, Turin, this area, is another place where 4 lines meet, and therefore gives those who have access to the synchronic lines can also use them. Which is why Falco and his group chose to build their society or this community in that area.
And they started building temples under the ground. I mean, these are I think the biggest temples under the ground in the world.
Yes. Then I see now that they're called the eighth wonder of the universe. They started building this also towards the end of the 1970s. They excavated the mountain close to where Damahur was first founded for about 12 years before in secrecy. So they would put on music at night, and they would, so that no one would hear them excavating the mountain underneath.
Yeah, wasn't there a story with a policeman or the police coming and they saw this place and...
Well, there was a razzia.
Yeah.
There was police coming in 1992 and forced it open, which is at the time from when, in fact, the temples became open to others. They were excavated in secrecy for all these years, and they were a treasure to the Damanhurians, a big, a well-kept secret until it was betrayed. And they had to change strategy. And then there was also the fight needed to render them legal, because they were threatened by closure and because there was no law that would legalize an underground constructional work in Italy at the time. So they had reasons to demolish everything, which they didn't, luckily, after a petition that collected many signatures all over the world in order to save the Temples of Humankind. And they were saved, and now they are visited by 20,000 tourists a year from all over the world. And they're still growing. Yeah, so it's a living mechanism of the temples. It's not that it was done once and for all. We're still enlarging the halls, and there's a perspective or an idea, a plan for something that is 90% bigger than what we have been able to realize so far.
Yeah, because I read somewhere that the police came and they wanted them to stop excavating, but then they saw these temples and they just lost their jaws and said, okay, just continue. But I don't know if that's a myth.
Well, it's a way of telling the story. They did come, and they probably thought, this was in the 70s, this group of young people in their 20s could also be reckoned. Well, it was not in the 70s at the time, but throughout their history, they were 25-year-olds, those who first started Damanhur. So it tended to be perceived as a hippie community. But then, unlike most communities at the time, this continued with a very different mission. And so in 1992, I think the rumors were that there were drugs and weapons and all sorts of terrorists, that this was a terrorist center. So the police that came in 1992 and forced it open, they thought that they were dealing with terrorists, and they had an attorney with them who came into then they decided, well, we will show you what this is. And they came out crying because of the beauty that was the exact opposite of what they expected to find. So it's I think...
I love that story.
Moment.
Yes. So this goes all the way back to Atlantis. There is a link here to Damanhur and Atlantis. I'd love to hear that story.
Well, Damanhur certainly refers to the fact, or relates to the fact, that human history goes way beyond Egypt or wherever we choose to stop in our past, in the history books of today. And that there have been human civilizations not only on this planet but also on other planets for much longer time than we're used to thinking. That it's difficult also for me to imagine. So not only to Atlantis, but to the fact that there have been pre-Atlantean civilizations, and that there are reasons to see ourselves in combat that has taken place in this galaxy for way back. And this is, so Damanhur is fighting for the good, for the evolution of mankind. In a vision that certainly includes Atlantis as a point in time where man had realized the great potential, in a view of history that we are not now on the apex of our history. We're not the most evolved human beings that have ever been, but that the most evolved human beings that have ever been on this planet were here at the time of Atlantis. And so something happened at that time that make us still work towards recovering our greatness, our potential is something realized and manifested on Earth.
And there was a fall there.
There was a fall there. There was a loss. There was a great loss, and with consequences. And so, what the overall vision of Damanhur is the dream and the desire to reawaken the divine potential within every human being, knowing that it can be done, because it has been done before. We have lived in other conditions, and with certain technologies and kinds of knowledge that were known at the time and applied at the time of Atlantis, and that we, through Falco's knowledge and memory, have been able to recover and put into motion or research also today. So there are certain things in Damanhur that it's... Atlantis is relevant because there is much knowledge to be recovered from Atlantis that could serve us today, and that is part of what Damanhur is trying to do.
So how does this work in Damanhur on a day-to-day basis? I know that you live together with many people in a house. So what do you do every day? Do you practice different skills and clairaudience, clairvoyance, past lives, or how is this, working in the everyday life in Damanhur?
Everyday life in Damanhur is very practical.
Oh.
It's hard work. It tends to be directed towards transforming matter. It's the Damanhurian vision is practically applied idealism. We base it on action. We base it on choice. We base it on work, and that we have to work fast because we have to do it now. And so it is much less etheric than you might imagine. There are hardly any people that you will see sitting around meditating or anything, and that can be a surprise to many visitors. They tend to see Damanhurians being busy, doing all kinds of work, and going to all kinds of meetings, going into all kinds of settings that have many things happening at the same time. We're 600 to run a whole society with school, with shops, with a kind of political social structure that needs people to go into certain roles, etc. It's very complex.
Being politicians in a way?
Well, we are elected for positions within our family, for positions within our region, for positions of governing Damanhur, or being both political, socially leaders. We're all kinds of people sharing this vision and having to make it practically, applicable. Being to a very large extent an intentional community, and a community with a mission, and through the meditation school also a series of rituals, alchemical knowledge, and other kinds of research to put into practice. So we're a community of researchers, spiritual researchers.
But what about your own personal spiritual growth? Do you need to work on that by yourself then, in a way?
In a sense, yes, I'm responsible for me. In Damanhur, I'm also responsible for having an income. I can't rely on the community to pay for me because I am the community, so I supply the community with parts of my income. That is how we create things together. Then I live together with other people, which is a very efficient way of working on yourself. Because you get mirrored from all these aspects that I haven't chosen them as my friends with whom I have a clear idea of how one does things. I live with people from other countries, from other cultures, from other ages, from other kinds of works, from other backgrounds. And we have to agree on what our family looks like, how we do things, what clean is, what good food is, what the day, when the day should end. All these things that families somehow tend to have an automatic agreement on, we have to stabilize in the context that is Damanhurian social life, where we anyway have many points during our days that give us a certain rhythm in common. That is something, the sense of sharing a life. But it is both the diversity between us, which we appreciate. Diversity is a good thing. It's a great value of life on Earth. And then there is the teachings that come from finding solutions and sharing your life with other people, and not only, between 2 and 4, but all around the clock. And then obviously there is the teachings of Falco. There is a series of contexts into which we study them, and there is a series of contexts in which we research them, because it gave us so much, and for us to be able to access it properly, we also have to research it and put it into practice. There is the idea that knowledge is the ultimate aim of life, so there will be much study also to widen your concept of both what is possible and what the world really consists of.
So this is metaphysics, right? In a sense that you're researching metaphysical things, phenomena.
We tend not to see difference, because we're metaphysical too. We are both. And so what we would study is the essential Damanhurian philosophy can be summed up in what is called Esoteric Physics, that describes a cosmology in which there are 8 laws at play to stabilize what we perceive as the world of forms. These laws, knowing them, are something that we could also aim at using. That is both perceiving but also changing the world by knowing how the laws in the world of forms function. This all in all, it makes it a wide field of research that implies both personal development, because you can expand to understand yourself in many more ways. Then obviously social research is very important in Damanhur, because we want to come back to the perception that the group is the most important cell on Earth between humans, in the sense that it is the group that can change things. As single persons, we can hardly do too much of a difference. And so we tend to also want to experience ourselves in a group and have that added value when 2 plus 2 or 4 plus 4 makes something more than just 4 and 8. So this is also a kind of research. And then there are all kinds of researches into agriculture, into renewable energy. It's a holistic society in the sense that we do not limit spirituality to be a certain kind of thinking or meditating or being or addressing other non-terrestrial forces. But we tend to believe that spirituality is also expressed through how we do our work, through how we relate to the others, through what we are able to create, through what we are able to add of value and give significance to, because the world only exists as far as we give meaning and attention to it.
I've been interviewing a lot of people about the law of attraction lately, and it's been coming back and back for me. What is your or Damanhur's perspective on that? And are you researching, for instance, the law of attraction?
Well, not under that name. We would refer much to a concept of synchronicity, the kind of accumulation of events pointing in a certain direction, and that you can somehow learn, which is one of the laws, one of the 8 laws governing the universe. So if you access an enforced use of, or a stronger use of synchronicity, or if you open up to have synchronicity play in your life, that can be technically described that it would be then an enhanced amount of events bringing you in a direction that for your evolution is a good thing. So that is another way of looking at it. It's another, and it does. I think, that, at least to me, there is the difference that I would not, as a single, in the vision, why am I on Earth? Damanhur is telling me that I am part of a mission. So to a certain extent, my good is less important than the success of the Damanhurian project. So in a way, I devote my life into playing one role between many in a context that is more important than me. because only that context can make a huge difference, whereas I'm only one brick. So I would tend to think I can also, not that I don't want happiness in my life or that I don't want to attract all the good things that I can have, but I would tend to see it more than it's only good or attractive to me if I can see this in relation to my mission, which is part of the Damanhurian mission or part of humanity's mission. Because we have one. We have a mission as mankind on Earth, and that is something that maybe has been the most important part for me to remember encountering Damanhur, that we are here as humanity to shift something, to lift something, to come back to something with mission completed, which is totally absent from the thought of modern day society, where attraction means attracting goods, attracting job opportunities, attracting whatever makes you richer in a certain way that is not necessarily helping others. This is a complex area, though. It's not that my happiness is of benefit to everyone. That's also part of it. So it's not that I don't realize the double aspect of this. But I believe the mission aspect is what gives direction to the direction of, in my case, I would say synchronicity or the law of attraction would be. I would see it in that sense.
But it makes sense to me if you found your mission. I think that's what people really are seeking, their mission. Why are they here? And if you found that, I mean, that brings a happiness and maybe a feeling of that I'm satisfied in doing my mission, that's enough, and then it's kind of flowing to you as well, and you have found your mission, or at least for now, and after what I understand, you came down there and you realized that this was in a way predestined, and that Falco had been calling out to different souls to remember their plan from before to do this big experiment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
As far as I can understand it, yes, I did have the feeling but more that feeling of coming home to a vision or coming home to a memory. That was how I experienced my meeting with Damanhur. And then you will have other people telling you their stories, and they will often imply a recognition on the soul level that makes you use your free will as a human being and make a choice that otherwise might also be uncomfortable. So I think happiness is something that I do not necessarily feel every day, but it could be that. But the feeling of a sense to my life or a sense to the direction that I've chosen is strong. That's true. But this could also, but it's a choice that can also call for sacrifice, because you give, in order to choose something, you have to give up something else. But the calling of Damanhur to me was so strong that I could do that too. And as an irreversible choice, because it is a belief that this project carries that weight throughout the history of mankind. That is my perception and my reason for being there. And then it is true that we believe other souls will have that experience, that Damanhur probably would represent that to them too, even if it is not the idea that everyone should come and live in Damanhur because that is the only way one can realize one's missions. And that is not the idea. A more correct way of putting it would be it would be nice, it would be a good thing if many souls recognize the work that needs to be done to reawaken the divine potential within us, the divine spark. It would be very nice if more people, and they do, recognize the need for living in community, giving up the idea of being separate individuals, because then we are easily prey to whatever somebody who organizes themselves decide. So if we want to change the world, we have to organize ourselves differently. And the way of doing that is living in community, living in intentional community, creating a network of communities that can support each other and exchange. So that would be in line with what Damanhur would encourage as a vision that can be expanded globally. And then obviously there is knowledge that we offer, that Damanhur can offer, of help, both for reinforcing our energy as human beings, so that we also have the possibility to search for other precious gifts within us and put them into use. And that is, instead of being somehow kept in the idea that the society has to be like this moral and social scheme that we're living is the truth, because that is the only thing, that is what we grew up with, and it is the only possibility that we can see, because it is not. And a good reason for exploring other cultures, other peoples, how they have manifested being human on Earth, is to find out how relative all our truths are. And one freedom to be had is to exactly that one, to free oneself of the idea that something has to be like this, and this is a fixed limitation. It is not. Who said a god? Well, there are many gods, and they can have said that for their own purpose. It's giving oneself the possibility to broaden one's mind, because the limitations can be seen through.
So what was your reason for going there in the first place? Because you actually were working as a publisher here in Norway, you were writing books, and then all of a sudden you decided to move to Damanhur. Was there something that happened in your life? Was there a shift, or have you always been a spiritual seeker?
No. The shift came in the year 2000, when I realized I had to change something, because in spite of a wonderful job, I felt that my life was not going anywhere. And so I tried to find out how to change things, and I was not able to, so change was forced upon me, and I had this car crash. I went out to look for the Black Madonnas, so some part of me knew that I needed to find something in this, in a spiritual sense, but I was not a spiritual seeker. I didn't even know that I was seeking. I was doing something I thought to be intellectual. And so, but I didn't get very far before I realized that my life was a complete mess, that I really didn't know what to do with it. And so I started reading Louise Hay and other self-help books, that kind of books that help you take a grip on who you are, etc. And I remember I was crying at everything she wrote, because she wrote, I shouldn't be too hard on myself, that I should stop punishing myself because I was there where I was for a reason, etc. And I was, yes. Because I had, I was at the point zero. And from then I started learning to meditate. In the beginning I had my eyes closed, and I was going with my very, very, very busy mind. Is this how I do it? I was really far from having any experience of another way of functioning other than through my mind and my thought that was very busy, sometimes successfully when relating to manuscripts as a literary editor, and with the kind of sensitivity that probably I would use in that field, but not recognizing as such. And many other aspects of me that I could only find tedious and tiresome because I didn't know what to use them for. They made me shy. And so I would try to suppress them. And then through Reiki, meditation, energy work, starting with exploring the world of more dimensions, I went quite impatiently through studies and books and changes. And but I didn't really stop looking anywhere until I came to Damanhur for the first time, and I realized that if if I mean what I say when I say that I want to know things, I can't escape this. I have to find out what they know, because it is so evidently much more than than I've found anywhere else. And even if it meant having my, then, you tend to make a vision of how things work and how they're connected and so on. And I had made mine spiritual world that looked like this, and you could do like that, and then everything would work. This it fell down completely. So I had to start translating between this, which I thought I had developed and come to understand, with what Damanhur represented, which was so radically different and big. And there are obvious connections. So it's not the truth is a crystal with many facets, and this is one. I had one too, but a very small one compared to the immense treasure of possible knowledge to access that Falco left, and that has been researched and therefore constantly growing in Damanhur. Which is my reaction was, I have to go there, and I have to go straight into the heart of this, because I want to know everything. I'm still working on it though.
I can recognize myself in that. I have to know. Was that the time when you went to Damanhur? Was that the time when you started hearing voices?
No, that was before. That was shortly after the shift. Mm. So in the year of 2001, probably I'd had some channels opened via Reiki. Mm. And I needed... I had put myself in a position where I was all open. I was aware of badly needing some help. And so I started asking, I opened up. I was in that position. I suddenly realized I don't know how to do anything. So somebody help me. That was my message to the universe, and they did. Wow. So what I experienced for a year or two was that I could say, I don't know how to do this, because I'm obviously incapable of knowing how to walk the earth. And now I feel incredibly lonely. Could somebody take my hand? And I would actually, this you can explain with the kind of use of your perception and etc. But I could feel that somebody would took my hand, and even if there was no one, even if I only created that by giving attention to my hand, I could feel it. And so I pretended that somebody was holding my hand. And this is how I went through a series of emotional crises, having to rebuild another way of relating to the world, of relating to myself, and relating to an aim for my existence.
Wow, this is a powerful story. I mean, it was a huge shift. I didn't realize that before I came into this interview, that it was so transforming for you, actually. But was it because of the accident, or was it just that things became empty in a way? Because I feel like many people are working and they have accomplished so much, and then they feel like, is this it?
Well, I think the accident came into play because I didn't have any other... I didn't find an answer to the emptiness. But also energetically, I was unable to bring richness into my life at that moment, because if you close down your perception, then life becomes empty. That's easy. And so having more energy is also a way to both being able to act constructively and also to perceive more, because you have the surplus that it takes to open up to see if there is new possibility. Sickness does that to you. Illness, it will close your energy down, and so you will feel life less empty. The cure is always to open your energies up, because then many more things, law of attraction, can come into play with you. And so what I did was to go very far down on this one closing down road, and then I was quite an eager learner when I realized that, okay, further down than this I can't go, so now it's all about opening up. And so obviously I shocked all my surroundings. And then only some time after it became evident that it's not, you don't necessarily have to end all relations, end all history, and everything in your life, but I had to take the risk of doing that in order to change my own life. And so, but things have also, there have been continuous threads in my life too. But that time was a great period of great shift, yes. So in a way, Damanhur was not the great shift in the sense that the process started 6 years earlier, but it stopped my search in the sense of place, how, with whom, teacher, all these things that can keep you traveling inside and out for a long time. It became a shift in the sense of, well, this is the place, and I give myself over to the transformations that can take place in this context, because I believe that it is part of me and I am part of it.
So what is your job there in Damanhur? How do you make money in that community? And I know you also have a different name there. So what is your part in a way?
Well, as a citizen of Damanhur, I have many responsibilities in my family, in my meditation school, and I have, as all Damanhurians, many containers into which I put my energy and can receive from. I am a writer still, basically Norwegian, so I keep my work as a writer, and I've also read manuscripts for publishing houses ever since I stopped being an editor. So there is a continuity in my work, but it tends to shift more towards now a certain kind of writing and more channeling, and with more experience I also tend to practice healing much more, and then it is part of my work, as I see it, to be a bridge between, together with others, be a bridge between Damanhur and Norway, because there's a Norwegian person. I can also contribute with that, having people in Norway come to learn about Damanhur, possibly going there, helping them going there. And also
people can visit?
Of course they can.
Mm-hmm.
They should. Mm. They can come, most people would come to see, at least to see Temples of Humankind. But there are many courses you can do in Damanhur. There are many there are retreats also that you can have. You can have visits that include to see more aspect of this very complex reality. And there are courses that are being brought to Norway too. So there are Damanhurian teachings taking place right now in Oslo and in Stavanger. Oh. And in other parts of the world. It is part of the Damanhurian mission to bring the knowledge out. And so there are Damanhurian centers in many countries. And there are Damanhurian ambassadors traveling to almost all parts of the world. Mm. And the visitors also tend to come from all over the world, even more than Italians.
So we do have access to the temples below?
Yes. Since mid-90s, they have been open to the public, and that has been... It is, amongst many other functions, one of them is it is a kind of gift to people, because they can come there and walk the corridors, the great halls that are all decorated with loads of artworks. That's mosaics, that's stained glass works, that's the greatest dome of Tiffany glass in the world. There are wall paintings and large parts of human history represented on the walls or in the artworks in general. And in a way, they're meant to guide you on an inner journey whilst visiting. In a way, they're meant to remind you of the very rich history of mankind that we somehow tend to reduce with regards to diversity. Species are becoming extinct every day in the world of plants and animals. Peoples are becoming extinct every day, and the Temples of Humankind also wish to honor the nature peoples that have lived, with their rituals, with their ceremonies, with their relationship to divinities, and also thereby remind us of what we as individuals or as a collective, human collective, have had of a different relationship with nature and the world of animals and the world of nature spirits, let alone. Because we used to, throughout many periods of life on Earth, we have lived in a very different balance with other intelligent forms of intelligent lives on this planet.
You mean like fairies?
Of course. Also. Nature spirits are an important part of the inhabitants of this planet. Animals and plants are important intelligences on this planet, and we tend to think that as a human species we are the dominant and the superior ones. Damahur tends to want to remind us that that is not necessarily the case unless we prove to be so wise that we're able to cohabit the planet with them in a balanced way. And so far that is not what we have been proving. And that is one of the reasons why we need to change, entering into relationship with the other worlds on this planet that we tend to take for granted or exploit or kill.
Wow, this is so fascinating. I'm getting so touched that people are actually, that this has been possible, that Falco made this and that he has gathered so many people that continues, because he recently died, that really has established this and that it means so much for so many people. And who knows, how this will develop. It's very exciting.
Well, right now we hope to see this development in ever more parts of the world, and so opening up also the knowledge that we hope people will take to and enjoy the access to. So please come.
I want to come. Maybe I'll come next summer. I will try and bring my camera. Thank you so much and have a good journey back.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for watching, guys. Much light from Oslo. Bye bye.